Long multiplication. We call it long multiplication when we are multiplying by a two-digit number. Now, like our video on short multiplication, there are two ideas that will help us to get long multiplication done correctly. First of all, the idea that multiply is like a bully. That will help us to set it out correctly. And pivoting will help us to do things in the correct order. Since you've probably already watched the first video about multiplying by a single digit number, that was the video about short multiplication, we'll go quite quickly through these ideas. To set it out correctly, we first need to move these numbers against the wall. The wall always goes on the right hand side. So let's move things against the wall. Let's put a wall in on the right hand side. Now we can just pretend this wall is there. We don't actually have to draw it in every time. Now we want these numbers pushed up against the wall like a bully would do, pushing children up against the wall before he harasses them and does something not very nice to them. So the 609 is pushed up against this wall. But the 35, we need to move that up against the wall. Is this up against the wall? No, the 35 is not up against the wall. There is still a space here. We need to push it up against the wall. Is that up against the wall? No. There's still space here, but not only that, the digits have not lined up properly underneath each other. Right, this is better. Then we can draw a line underneath. And we are ready to talk about pivoting. Now, we talked about pivoting in the last video, and this part is exactly the same, the first part, because we're using the same top number. We're also using a 5 here, which was also in the last video. So the first part will be exactly the same. The heel stays in the same place. We always start with the smallest place value in the bottom number. The heel must stay there. The toes will then move to the next digit as we go along. So first we do 5 times 9. Next, we'll do 5 times 0. Next, we'll do 5 times 6. Then we are finished with the 5. What do we do next? Next, we move the heel. The heel will move across to the 3. And we will do 3 times 9. And you can see it's starting with the smallest place value and then moving across to the larger place values, one step at a time. So 3 times 9, then 3 times 0, then 3 times 6. And then we're very close to the end of it. Now let's actually do it. Now I've made the numbers a little bit smaller because you will need some room at the top and more room underneath than what we needed when we were doing short multiplication. Now let's do it. So we start with the smallest place value of the bottom number, which is the 5, and we do 5 times 9, which is 45. We always leave the units down the bottom and put the tens in the next column. We always put it in the center of the column too. Now we do 5 times 0, which is 0, plus 4 is 4. Be careful to keep your digits lined up. This will help at the end or later when you're trying to check what you've done. Now we do 5 times 6, which is 30. Units here. We're not going to put the tens up the top because there's nothing to put it with, so we are just going to write the 3 down the bottom. Now we are finished with the 5. We've done 5 times everything. So we are now going to cross out the 5, just put a neat line through it. We've already used this 4 because it was used when we're doing the 5 times everything. so we don't need the 4 either. Let's cross that out. Now we want to start with the 3. So we've moved the heel across. But before we can start, we need to realize that by moving across to the 3, the place value has changed. And the place value of this digit is 10 times bigger. To make it 10 times bigger, we need to add a 0 down the bottom first. Once we've done that, we are now ready to start with multiplying by the 3. 3 times 9 is 27. Write the units down here. Write the tens up the top. Now it could be confusing because we've just done the 7 there. We might think we put the 2 in the next column. We don't. And the reason is because we just finished doing 3 times 9. We're going to do 3 times 0 next. So we need that 2 above the 0, because this is the next thing we're going to do. So let's just go over that. 3 times 9 is 27. Put the units there. And the 2 goes in the next column from where we just did our last calculation. We just did 3 times 9, so the next column would be the 0. That's what we're doing next. 3 times 0 is 0, plus 2 is 2. Now we're doing 3 times 6, which is 18. Units down here. The 1 would go in the next column normally, because we've just done 3 times 6, but there's nothing in the next column, so we are just going to write the 1 down there. We need another line. Now short multiplication doesn't have this step. And that is that at the end we need to draw another line neatly, put an addition sign, and now we need to add these two bottom numbers. 5 plus 0 is 5. 7 and 4 is 11. So the 1 goes here and the 1 from the tens goes to the next column. Be careful where you put it. Some children put it here and it looks like a 10. We don't want it to look like a 10. That 1 is going in the next column. We need it to be in the middle of that column so that it lines up, because we're going to add these together. 1 plus 0 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 8 is 11. So 1 here, 1 in the next column. Be careful to make sure it goes right in the middle of that column, in the center. 1 plus 1 is 2. To help us read our answer, we can put a comma in by counting from the units. 1, 2, 3, comma. Our answer is 21,315. The most common mistakes that children make with this is forgetting to put the 0 in when they move to the next digit at the bottom. If you leave the 0 out, it will be completely wrong. The other common mistake is that children put the digits in the wrong place at the top, which also confuses them.